Alright, so in this video we are going to go over why moment arms matter in exercise. So in the previous video we went over what is a moment arm, and I showed you how to find a moment arm in particular exercises. So just a quick little recap. In order to find a moment arm, we need the axis of rotation of the joint that's moving, which in this dumbbell biceps curl will be the elbow joint here. Then we need to figure out the line of force of the force acting upon our body, which is a 5-pound dumbbell here. And then the distance between those two, the perpendicular distance, is the moment arm. Now, before we get into why moment arms matter, there is a principle here that we need to understand before we get into that. Okay, and that principle is the length-tension relationship. And what the length-tension relationship defines is how the length of a muscle fiber affects its force production. And why that's important is because the length-tension relationship describes that here in the shortened range, we are the weakest because our muscles physiologically are capable of producing the least amount of force. Once we get here into the mid-range, as you can see, force here on the left, as we go from the short to the mid, that force production starts to rise. So in the mid-range, we are capable of producing high amounts of force, especially compared to the shortened position. Then here in the lengthened range, with the help of passive tension, without getting too deep into the science of what passive tension is, this passive tension helps us produce more force here in the lengthened range. As you can see, the total amount of force here between the mid and lengthened range. So in simple terms, without getting into the nitty-gritty, length to tension relationship describes the amount of force we are capable of producing in different muscle lengths. We're weak in the short, capable of producing the least amount of force, and we are the strongest in the mid and lengthened range here, capable of producing the most amount of force. So if we take this length tension relationship principle right here, and we compare it to our dumbbell biceps curl, what the length tension relationship describes is that we are strong in the lengthened, strong in the mid, weak in the short. So figuring out what moment arms we have here, we have a small moment arm here in the lengthened where we are capable of producing the most amount of force. So if we wanted to optimize or make the dumbbell bicep curl more efficient, we would want to do so by making the moment arm here in the lengthened range larger, because we're capable of producing more force here. Remember, the longer the moment arm, the more force your muscles are producing in that range of motion. Okay, so does the dumbbell bicep curl physiologically match what our muscles are capable of producing? Kinda, but not really. This moment arm could be a little bit longer, and we could just manipulate that, which I'll go over in future videos throughout the full exercise library. Now, if we look at the mid-range here, does this match what our biceps are capable of doing physiologically? Yes, it does. The moment arm is the largest here, and we are capable of producing the most amount of force here in this mid-range. So that absolutely matches up. Now, as we get over here into the shortened range, where we are the weakest, again, because of the length to tension relationship stating we're weak in the shortened range, or the shortened position. In a free weight dumbbell biceps curl, this does not match what we are capable of producing physiologically. Okay, so if we were to create a graph of the resistance profile of the dumbbell biceps curl, it would look a little something like this. So if we go, short is over here, lengthened is over here, and then up here we've got our force. What we're looking at is we're producing high amounts of force here in the shortened range, and then once we get to the mid-range, we're producing much more force, and then we're kind of dropping down here in the lengthened range. So if we take this, and this isn't extremely accurate, it's not down to the exact units of measurement, but if we take this, okay, that's all jacked up. If we take this graph right here, does this match? This is called a resistance profile here on the right. Does this resistance profile match what we are capable of doing physiologically? No, it doesn't. What the dumbbell biceps curl is creating is high amounts of force here in the shortened range where we're the weakest, high amounts of force here in the mid-range where we are the strongest, which is good. And then the bad part about it is it drops down here in the lengthened range where we are also the strongest. So going forward, as we're looking at moment arms in each individual exercise, this is why they are important, because it helps us train smarter and more efficiently by picking exercises that match the resistance profile, which is right here, to the length tension relationship, which is what our muscles are physiologically capable of producing. There's no changing it. It's rooted into our physiology. It is what it is. If we use that reasoning and now take a dumbbell lateral raise, as you can see here with my beautiful stick figure drawing, if we use the reasoning of moment arms help us choose better exercise selection, we can take a look at a dumbbell lateral raise and compare it to the length to tension relationship, which is down here on the right, and compare the resistance profile to what our muscles are physiologically capable of producing. So I already went through and found the moment arms. If looking at this you seem a little bit confused, I will just go ahead and say that this red circle here is our shoulder joint. We've got our 5-pound dumbbell down here, which is indicating the line of force, and then the perpendicular distance between the axis of rotation, which is our shoulder joint, and the line of force right here is the moment arm. We've got our lengthened position, our mid-range, and the shortened position. So, as we can see, with a dumbbell lateral raise, here in the lengthened position, we're not producing a high amount of force because the moment arm is small. In the mid-range, we're producing a decent amount of force because this moment arm is slightly larger. And then in the shortened range here, we're producing the most amount of force within the range of motion of this exercise. Okay, so now looking at this, does this match what our muscles are physiologically capable of producing through the length tension relationship? It's kind of a tongue twister. And the answer is no, it does not, because where we are strongest, again, in the lengthened to mid-range, within the dumbbell lateral raise, we're not producing high amounts of force in those ranges of motion because the moment arms here are small. Where we are producing the most amount of force is here in the shortened position, where we are the weakest physiologically. So if we draw out this resistance profile, it's going to look a little something like this. We've got our shortened range over here, which matches this shortened range, the lengthened range, which matches this lengthened range. Then obviously the middle right here is the mid-range, just to clarify in case anyone is confused. So what the resistance profile looks like with a dumbbell lateral raise is a little something like this. Producing the most amount of force up here in the shortened range, then in the mid-range it's kind of dropping off a little bit, and then in the lengthened range it drops off significantly. So if we compare, let's do like a bright green here. If we compare this resistance profile to what we are physiologically capable of producing, does it match up? No, it does not. Now, does this make the dumbbell lateral raise or the dumbbell biceps curl a bad exercise? No, it doesn't. But is it the most effective or the most efficient to incorporate in our training? No, it's not. And why it's not is simply because of this right here. That resistance profile does not match up what we are capable of producing physiologically. So what you want to try to do in the gym is choose exercises that match up either perfectly or as close to perfect as you can to what you're, again, physiologically capable of producing. Now, it's super important to understand this length-tension relationship right here so that we can choose better exercises to incorporate into our programs. Now, that is one major reason as to why moment arms matter, because if we didn't know how to find the moment arm in either of these two exercises, then we wouldn't understand what forces we're producing in these ranges of motions and how those forces match up to what we're capable of producing physiologically. Now, why do moment arms matter in exercise? We have 3 reasons as to why moment arms matter in exercise. Reason number 1, if we go back up and look at the dumbbell biceps curl, is it allows us to train smarter. And it allows us to train smarter because we know in a dumbbell biceps curl, here in the mid-range where we are the strongest due to the length-tension relationship, we are capable of producing the most amount of force here in the mid-range. Now in the dumbbell biceps curl, we are producing the most amount of force here in this mid-range. So you want to spend more time in this area in the dumbbell biceps curl. It also helps us in preventing injuries. So here in this mid-range, since it's the hardest because our biceps are producing the most amount of force, this is where people are going to cheat. Okay, you're going to see people start using their lower back, start swinging, start using momentum. Same thing down here in the dumbbell lateral raise. Here, where we're producing the most amount of force in this shortened position, this is where the exercise is going to be the hardest, and this is also, again, physiologically where our deltoids are the weakest. So people are most definitely going to be cheating here in this shortened position. So we have injury prevention, training smarter, and the ability to choose better exercises for our programming. We want to be able to choose exercises, and you will be able to do this once I start creating the videos with the exercise library in full. We want to be able to choose exercises that match what we are capable of producing. So choosing exercises that have a resistance profile that match this length to tension relationship. So now that we know why moment arms matter in exercise, in the following videos, I'm going to start building the exercise library. I'm going to go over squats, bench, deadlift, cable work, free weight work, everything in between, to help all of you be able to analyze which exercises are the most efficient, which exercises give you the most bang for your buck. Now, this series isn't to highlight any bad exercises and better exercises. It's just to show you how we can train more efficiently and just be a little bit better with our exercise selection. So, with that being said, if you guys want to see how I incorporate all of these principles into my own training programs, just click on the link down below, leave a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the exercise library.